Welcome back. I'm talking to Gary McKinnon. Now, in some of your media interviews, Gary, I've seen you talk about free energy, and I'm also very interested in that subject. And this is, some people would term it over unity technology, others perhaps perpetual motion machines is another word people might use, or energy from the vacuum. And this is a possible untapped source of energy which is locked within the vacuum or within space itself, that many people believe can be turned into usable energy. So my opinion is of the free energy, it's not energy from nowhere, it is coming from a source. But you've looked at certain technologies and you've even built some of your own experiments. So can you just tell us about your interest in that subject?
Yeah, I mean, I started off, like a lot of people, being interested in Bedini. And after looking at that for a while, I realised that was just the magnetic collapse, the inductive spike. There was no extra energy.
So you don't think there's any extra energy in the Bedini motor?
No, and I don't think Bedini's ever claimed there was.
Right, all right. Yeah. Have you seen any of the videos where they've got two batteries, one which is being charged and the other one is kicking the motor around?
Yeah.
And it seems to go for months or years, and it will charge the batteries as well. That's the claim. So it's getting energy from somewhere, allegedly. So you would refute that, yeah? Yeah,
well, these people need to go to battery university. Using batteries to try and make accurate measurements of power in and power out is just nonsense.
Yeah, I would agree that, So my thought on the Bedini motor has always been, why don't they just use capacitors?
Yeah, then you've got an exact storage.
For the input and output battery, instead they use capacitors instead. Why can't they redesign it with capacitors? And then there would be no
room for error. A nice capacitor bank, that maybe still the same as the 12-volt car battery. And then, but the one thing I did find that did seem to work was there's a guy called Thane C. Hines, and he constructed coils in such a way that the rise time lagged behind the rotational movement. So normally you get lens effect, and the magnetic field you induce opposes the rotation. Whereas if you can make the rise time lag by the rotation, it actually aids it, because once it's risen, the magnet's past the coil and it pushes it around. And I did my own replication of his coil and got this effect to happen. And I'm no physicist, so I could be wrong, but it seemed to violate the work energy principle, because when you attach a load to a generator that's made with these coils, the rotor speeds up and the input current goes down.
Right.
Which violates the work energy principle. But some people may say it may just be impedance matching, but I don't know, because it seemed to work over a fairly wide range.
All right, and any other, because there are hundreds of alleged devices, aren't there?
If you can find some thorium, then you can try a nuclear battery, if you like.
Right.
And there's isotopic decay. It's not free energy, but it's extremely cheap, and there's no moving parts.
Right.
And you can have one of those in every home, and if people don't mind sitting on a potential nuclear explosion.
Right. So, and what would be the legal ramifications of building something like that? Do you know? Have you looked at that?
Funny you should ask that, because I watched a video the other day about a guy who was 15 in America, and he scraped off all the radium and the old glow-in-the-dark alarm clocks, and he got the stuff out of smoke detectors, which is radioactive, and some other stuff. And he ended up having the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, tearing down his shed and storing it in radioactive lead buckets or whatever. So I think it turns out there's no law that forbids individuals from experimenting with it, or there wasn't then, but there are for corporations. But I wouldn't even experiment with HHO gas, let alone nuclear power. So I'll stick to my magnets and coils, thanks.
Right. And what's your feeling on where the energy is stored and how the mechanism is coming from the vacuum, as they say? Have you looked at the physics side of it?
Yeah, I mean, they do say, there are these virtual particles popping in and out of existence, and there is this, sea of negative energy. But I'm not a physicist. I'm not highly advanced in maths. So there's a lot of I'd like to understand, but can't unless I invest, 6 months getting my maths better. But even that wouldn't be free, because that is coming from somewhere. And for all we know, that could be affecting something somewhere else.
Yeah.
We could be taking something from someone that lives somewhere else for all we know. And if other dimensions exist, which there's no evidence of, you could be sucking something from another dimension, couldn't you? On a common sense level, magnets have a push, don't they? I mean, it looks like kinetic to us, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the reason they don't work in a normal setup is because of the balance. You know, they always cancel each other out. I think if you can find a clever way of introducing an imbalance to the magnets, like through new metal shielding or something, then you may be able to get rotation without any electrical input.
Yeah. So do you think this principle has been mastered and secretized, and they've got it in the secret space program or in other programs?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is I don't know. But if you look at, you know, Tom Bearden often quotes like Khrushchev and the Russians talking about their scalar electromagnetic weapons, and we know that the computing power the NSA had in the 60s was huge. So we may be being trickle-fed technology as it gets developed, and then they've got safe control of it. They've built the machines or the weapons or whatever, you know, they want to build from it, and then we get the trickle-down effect and all the consumer devices.
Yeah. Now, one other thing that you've looked at, Gary, is images of Mars. So you've looked at Mars orbiters. I don't know if you've looked at lander images. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I believe they have landing probes there. I believe the rovers are on the surface of Mars. I haven't seen anything to make me think they're not. And unlike the lunar lander, you know, the batteries in the rovers can withstand the environment they're in.
Yeah.
And
I've had a question answered on the batteries and how they're kept warm, because there's nuclear device powering them, or at least to keep the batteries warm. But I'm not 100% decided on what I said at the beginning there. I say 75% in the document that I've written, and it's there's a crinoid fossil. If they are on Mars, then there's a crinoid fossil there. But carry on.
Well, also, if they are on Mars, then there's an oil pipeline there. I found a thing. We should have got the photos, shouldn't we?
We can put them up afterwards.
Oh, excellent.
You can email. If you email me the photographs, I'll put them on as you're talking about them. So, an oil pipeline on Mars. Carry on.
Well, hopefully it's not an oil pipeline. I hope they're not there already. My God, BP. But so it's a huge. I only look at TIFF images, target image file format, because they're huge. You can zoom in. You can see loads of detail. I really don't like these people that say, "Oh, look, you can see a creature," and it's this blurry, fuzzy. There's too much of that. So I get these massive resolution files. I pour over every centimetre, you know, and I zoomed into this thing, and it was a perfect cylinder. And you can see, because of the highlighting, that it is curved, and it is a cylinder, pipe shape, coming out. And then it has beveled edges on the end. It goes up into a sort of fan, into a Y shape, and out like that, with two holes, perfectly symmetrical through its vertical cross-section, perfectly symmetrical along its pipe cross-section. And I'm thinking, well, that's that's technology. Right. It's made by beings. And so I wrote to NASA, because I always do, because people often say, "Oh, this is this," and NASA lies. I always email NASA, not in my real name, obviously. Right. And NASA said, "Oh, it's a ventifact. It's a form formed by wind erosion." And I said, "What, a perfectly symmetrical through its horizontal and vertical cross-section ventifact?" So then I typed into Google, "ask a geologist." Turns out you can ask a geologist anything in loads of universities. And I asked about 5 or 6 of them all around the world. And I got 2 answers. One was American, and which university was it? Because it made me think they might have known it was on Mars, or I don't know. Or maybe my email's on a list, you know, don't answer this guy's questions. And he said, "Oh, well, it could be a ventifact, you know, but we just don't know."
Right. So was this a Mars orbiter image? Or
no, this is a rover.
This is a rover image.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Interesting. Well, I'm not aware of the image you're talking about, but we can put that on the screen, and I'll certainly study it. I know that Andrew Johnson has pointed out various anomalies in the orbiter images. One that he thinks is some sort of dome within a crater that he thinks is, or suggests is man-made.
There's a few of them.
Or not natural.
Yeah. There's a huge golf ball dome in one of them. And there's one, I mean, the surface of Mars is incredible anyway. It's so alien looking, you know, assuming these are real pictures of Mars, which I do.
I don't poo-poo the idea that maybe there are orbiters around Mars. I don't know if you've watched my lecture on it, on the actual rovers.
I think I did. You and Andrew discussing them.
Yeah. It's there's certainly a lot of doubt in my mind over it. I'm not 100%. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
There's also the conference where the engineers have been asked questions and they don't know anything about the technology. That's what it comes across to me. But anyway, I guess I wouldn't put my life on it. And it's the same with the moon landings as well.
Yeah.
I'm not. We mentioned that earlier. You said that so some of the technology seems dubious and doubtful.
And some of the hazards, how could we have got past them?
Yeah. Right. So you don't think that man walked on the moon?
No, I don't think man even got to the moon and orbited it.
Right.
Simply because of the radiation, the Van Allen belts.
Right.
And I don't think the film could have survived the intense radiation from the sun. No atmosphere to shield it, no magnetosphere to shield it. I don't think you could take photos on the moon with the Hasselblads they had then anyway.
So assuming that the Apollo was a hoax, it means that you can't really trust anything coming out of NASA, does it?
Well, the National Association of Space Actors.
So you are going on filtered information, even when you're talking about these.
Yeah.
We're going on what they've given us, aren't we?
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to poo-poo that there's a gas pipeline
no, but
on
you're
Mars.
right. It's a weird situation because I'm saying, assuming that these are real, I think those objects are man-made. So it's kind of topsy-turvy.
All right, and Gary, it's been fascinating talking to you, and they have allowed you to start using computers again, and so you're working in the field of computers, and you're also self-employed, which is good news.
Yeah, good to be working again.
Now, the other thing that you're considering, or you've already embarked upon, is you're writing a book. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, I've done about 4.5 chapters, and so it's about half finished. I should finish it by, I don't know, spring next year. But I did approach some major European publishers, but publishers have their own perception of the market, and they want me to write about, the darkness and the suicide and the despair, and it's really somewhere I don't want to revisit. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that writing about, the hacking.
You want to write a nerdy book?
I do. I want to write just what it was like to be, an average guy, and the typical nerd loves his sci-fi or her sci-fi and UFOs, and so I want to, like the nerd that went too far.
Yeah, all right. Well, as I always say, the nerd shall inherit the earth, I think. But yeah, it's been fascinating listening to you, Gary, and thanks for coming all the way to South Wales.
Thanks
and
for having me. It's been
good luck with the book, and good luck with the business.
Thank you.
And I hope they leave you alone from now on.
So do I, thank you.
All right, and remember, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.